Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a lovely Thursday. I'm Rebecca, the CMO of GoStork, and I'm so thrilled today to have two incredible fertility coaches joining us, Caryn Rich and Monica Beavis, both of whom are just so supportive of this infertility community. And for those of you potentially considering working with a fertility coach throughout your journey to find support there, or who just want the chance to ask a fertility coach your questions directly, this is a great discussion for you. They'll be sharing an overview of what they do, their approaches, specific tips and methodologies, both that they work on in groups and one-on-one. And of course, they will be answering your questions, like I said. And thank you to those of you who have already submitted questions in advance. They're already on the list. And I am actually just working on adding them now, so just bear with me. Hi, Caryn. Good. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Monica.
I'm good.
Hi, Monica.
I just saw Monica.
I just tried to add you. I like your headband. Hi. Good.
Oh,
makes me so
hi
happy
guys.
when
How are
people
you?
get added easily.
Good.
These things are quirky sometimes.
I
It's so lovely to see both of your
That's
lovely faces
awesome.
together. How's your day going? It's going.
Good. It's going.
It's going. We all got the black memo, right? We're all wearing. We match.
Yes, of course. Yes, I'm feeling very New York. I just got back from a family vacation in the area. So, and this is where this is from. So, a nurse started this in New Jersey someplace. So I got for the girls and I got for myself. So,
hello.
A little black going on.
Whoever that is.
Thank you.
And I like your picture.
That is so nice.
So cute, Monica.
Oh, thank you. And my hair was a mess, so my mom did the thing in the back, and I just did it.
My favorite.
Yeah, it's so comfortable when you have the hair done.
Of course.
Thank you for having us, Rebecca.
And we can't wait to get into what should be just a really informative and supportive discussion. But first, I want to thank everyone for joining us already. Hi to everyone now or watching after this. And I also will turn it over to you in just a minute, but I would love to introduce these two amazing ladies and fertility coaches. So Caryn Rich is a fertility coach whose passion is helping women and couples navigate infertility. And I believe you've also dealt with a lot of secondary infertility cases, right? And this is after spending, I think, 8 long years struggling with her own journey to building her family. And Monica Beavis is a holistic fertility and IVF coach who underwent 5 rounds of IVF before finding success, and today specializes in supporting other women going through their own IVF journey and just really helping with what she wished she had along hers. So before we move on, also, if you have questions for Caryn or Monica that you didn't get to ask in advance, and again, thanks to those of you who do, like I said, they're already on the list, you can just do so in the comments or use the little question icon and we'll do our best to get to everything. And finally, for those who are new to us at GoStork, we are the first fertility marketplace where intended parents find, compare, and connect with top fertility providers. And just one thing that's core to what we do every day is bring more transparency to the fertility industry. And adding to that, what we love to do through these lives is bringing you insights and learnings, support, and tips from the experts, as well as from those who have walked the path new intended parents may just be beginning. So without further ado, let's get right to doing that. Everything okay there? I'd love to start just like I said by opening both of you. So again, honored to have you both joining. And can you each share your journeys to building your beautiful families and kind of what you learned along the way? But I'd also love to hear how that inspired you and what that transition looked like into starting a career, helping and supporting others going through something similar. Caryn, start with you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I am so honored to be here. Thank you for having us. And Monica, my beautiful friend, it is always an honor to share the stage with you. So I am so happy that we're all here together. I worked in, the fashion industry for about 12 years. And 15 years, traveled back and forth to Asia, worked in all these really high-profile companies, and I think the first time that I heard about infertility, there was a woman when I was working at Dawn and Caryn who had gotten pregnant, who had lupus. And it was one of those things that I remember just hearing the words, having assisted reproductive technologies, right? And, didn't really think much about it until I got married, and my husband and I had, decided that it was time for us to start for our family. And I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 20s. Didn't really think much about how that would affect my fertility because, quite frankly, you don't think about it in your early 20s when the last thing you want to do is get pregnant. You're on birth control not to get pregnant, right? So wasn't something that really resonated with me until we started trying. And it wasn't as easy as it was in the movies.
Or any TV
quite
show.
Quite frankly, right? In the movies, happens like that. Wasn't so easy. Or any TV show, like that first month, and Monica and I talk about this all the time, like the first month you're trying to baby dance, so much fun. Second month, a little less fun. Third month, a little less fun. By the sixth month, you're done. It's very hard to have timed intercourse and to have to be tracking it and make it mechanical, and there's, no romance in it. It's all clinical. You think that you have to keep your legs up and your hips up and, all of those things. So I wasn't surprised that we were told we needed to seek help. We went to a famous reproductive clinic in New York City, and I'm happy to say first round, first shot IVF. We have our son who is about to turn 15. It was great. But it kind of lulled me into this false sense of IVF is easy and it's a piece of cake, right? Even though in perspective, it wasn't so easy. It was something new. But by comparison, it took me 5 years and 15 infertility treatments and 5 miscarriages to actually have another viable pregnancy. And what I learned along the way was that I had come up with this roadmap, a right way to go through the journey and a troubleshooting way to go through the journey, and steps and check marks that you had to kind of check off in order to have success. I was deemed unexplained, which I call BS and unexplained. And really, there was no one out there to kind of, first of all, tell me that it was going to be okay. Tell me that they've been through the same thing, and to help me figure out what I had to do next to have success. Being stuck in infertility for a extended period of time, there are no words. It's hell. It is hell. And then wondering if your next pregnancy, if you're going to have a miscarriage or not, there's just so much uncertainty that it's really hard. So when I had finally made it through my journey, which also included a natural pregnancy with 1 tube in my early 40s, it came to me that I wanted to help others get there more quickly and more easily than I did. That was the calling that was on my heart. I used to joke when I worked in the fashion industry that I wasn't, doing anything that was, super important. Yes, it felt great when I was walking down the street and I saw people who were wearing my things, that I had worked on, but it wasn't anything that I felt like I was leaving my mark in this world. It called on my heart to be able to help others do that and to have what I didn't have in my journey. So that led me, one day to just say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to help others. And that is what I do. That is my passion. It lights me on fire every time I get a message or a picture or an email sent to me saying, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. I thought it would never happen, Caryn. Or Caryn, after our first, session together, I feel so much better. Like hearing that lights me on fire. I have chills. So that's just a little bit about me, maybe not such a little bit, but that's how I got here, and I couldn't be happier.
I said yesterday, I had chills and tears reading one of your posts, just also your honesty and sharing your personal story. I think it's just so supportive in general, let alone what you do with your clients. So, and Monica.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Rebecca. So my story is kind of similar like Caryn, and I think this was one of the things that connect us. We met in a live that Samantha Bush actually did, and we got clicking, almost immediately. Yes, that's how we got so connected, and we have so much similarities. I went through 5 cycles of IVF, and as I always tell and share in my story, like Caryn, I never paid attention when I was younger about my fertility. First of all, because I never was into children or marriage, and not because I didn't like it. It's just because, like, when I started 15 years, 16, no, actually 18 years ago when I met my husband, I was not into that tune of marrying or having kids. I thought the world was upside down, and look how it is now, and now I have children. So, and I come also from a very fertile family from my mom's side. They were 18 kids, 9 girls, 9 boys, same parents, and everybody got pregnant with the blow of a kiss. So I kind of took it as granted. So when I met my husband and I met my stepdaughter, that in that time she was 1 year and 4 months, I kind of start to feel that I want my own children, my own baby. Why? Because it was so hard for me to just have her like for a few days or for a few hours and then see her going back, and you know, that emptiness. So as well as Caryn, we start to try, you know, like, and I thought that the next month is gonna be like I'm gonna have the stick with a positive test. It didn't happen. So like Caryn says, 6 months later I was already frustrated, and I was already thinking there was something wrong with me, because he has a child and it's not working as we expected. So we try for a year, you know, we go to the doctor tells you try Clomid for another 6 months, and if after a year doesn't happen, so come back. And that's what happened. So we came back and they did all the blood tests. Everything came okay. But when we went to do the hysterosalpingogram, which is the one that checked the tubes, they found out that my tubes both were blocked. And we did 2 laparoscopies to try to open them, and eventually it didn't. That is when I learned that it was not okay to have heavy periods, painful periods that I always have, all my life have them, and because my mom and some of my aunts, they have the same. So that's what they knew, and that's what they passed to me, and it was normal. So we decided, you know, like, we need to go. No, we decided, actually, that was the only way for us to be parents. It was IVF. And, you know, 15 years ago, there was no social media, no Facebook, no Instagram, no nothing. And I felt defeated. I felt sad. I got into kind of a depression because I was asking myself, I born with a defective body, you know, and I feel embarrassed, and I feel like that something was wrong with me. And the one that really kind of choked me, it was my husband. Like, he's like, you know what, you need to, okay, cry, whatever, but don't get into the dark place, because there is still a chance. And that's how we did. The same like Caryn, first IVF cycle was successful. My daughter is also 15 years old, but then the nightmares start. So my second cycle was canceled due to a mistake in the clinic. They switched charts and they put me the medicine of another patient. So I got OHSS. Our doctor and our clinic took responsibility. So we jumped into the third cycle after 3 or 4 months, you know, of waiting from the medicine of the second cycle to, you know, go away, my ovaries to calm a little bit and get back to their normal size. And this third cycle was a positive outcome, but unfortunately at 39 weeks, I had a stillbirth baby girl. I developed some kind of blood clotting issue, which is also very normal during infertility treatments. And unfortunately, I had to go to deliver my daughter death at that time. So this kind of turned my world upside down. I went into driving my husband and my doctor crazy that I need another IVF, because I need to, you know, fill that hole, because it's a very selfish way of thinking, but that's what I was feeling. So we went, and the doctor said, I'm not doing that to you. You are not emotionally, physically, or, you know, mentally ready. You need to grieve. You need to let this move. You know, I need to feel my pain. That's also when I kind of learned that we need to allow our feelings to be felt, no matter if they are positive or negative. But forget it. I drilled him. He gave me the name of another doctor, RMA of New York, which is also a great clinic. I went there to a new doctor, and he was also insisting that I'm not ready. I don't know what I did, but whatever I did, I put him and my husband against the wall. Probably they felt that I was pointing them with a gun, and he said, you know, to do it. But what I did, it was worse, because I brought more pain to me. Yes, I got pregnant, but at 7.5 weeks, I miscarried. And then all of this crumbled my marriage down. We almost got divorced with my husband, because all of this affect your environment is like a wave, you know, like when a atomic bomb explode and all the waves destroy everything. That's infertility. And if you don't have the support, I didn't have it, I didn't want it. I told my husband, if we get pregnant, nobody needs to know how it was, because that shame. And then we went into this dark place. We almost got divorced, and then we realized that we need to either get divorced or either work on our relationship and ask ourselves, you know, we still love each other? That's the main question. Are we still in love with each other? And both of them were there. So we worked for a year in our relationship, and after a year we decided to go into our last IVF cycle. And no matter what was the result, we decided if it doesn't work, we stayed with Elia and my stepdaughter Daniela. And if it works, we go, you know, for it. And it worked. Maya is now 8 years old. She was a twin, actually. But I lost, you know, one of the twins. It's still in very early stages. I start to bleed and I freak out. I thought I'm losing the pregnancy. But when we went, we saw one heartbeat and another sac kind of fading away. Of course, this is when I started to kind of realize that I am not the only one that has gone through infertility. I'm not the only one that had a stillbirth. I'm not the only one that goes through miscarriage. I'm not the only one that almost got divorced because of that. And I wanted to open my heart and help others because I didn't have that help. And as well as Caryn, I love what I do. And I feel the same joy when I receive testimonials or emails letting me know that a session with me, you know, gave them so much hope or helped them to change a little bit in their lifestyle. And, you know, I study finance and business. I have a MBA in hotel and tourism. But after all what I went through, that's not my call. My call is this one. So, and, you know, as Caryn, we are here to support others, to give voice to others. I love
that. Sorry, I'm emotional there. It's so hard to even imagine. So I also just wanted to say I love that you two collaborate and, you know, you do Instagram lives together and have these conversations and obviously joined us, but there's so much more to it. And there's so many people out there to help and support. And it's like, you don't view this as competitive at all. We're just all in it together for the same reason, right? So I just love that perspective. And, you know, as you know, we're going to get into many more like specific methods and techniques and specific questions for you also from our followers and our GoStork users and intended parents. But first, I just was hoping for those who are new to this or considering working with a fertility coach but don't really know what it is, it might be a little bit confusing if you just go to Google it because, you know, there's different approaches and you two have slightly different approaches, right? And, you know, the different approaches might work slightly differently for a different mindset or someone's different needs or maybe a different journey. They're on a different point in their journey when they're starting to work with you. I mean, I don't want to get into 100 scenarios, but I would love to hear just your overview of how specifically a fertility coach helps and supports and the differences between your two approaches.
Okay. So, Caryn, you want to start or should I go?
Sure. So, whichever.
Yes.
Whatever.
Go ahead, darling.
Okay. So, you're right. And, you know, I am so blessed to have a business bestie like Monica. And I love the fact that we can support and love on each other. And there is no lack mentality whatsoever because there's enough of us to go around. We all, you know, there's so many women that need us that we don't operate on that, you know, venue. And I would refer people to Monica in a heartbeat. And I think she would refer people to me as well. I mean, because it's about what's going to work best for the person. And having been in the trenches ourselves and suffered so much pain, we know what it's like to be in everybody's shoes. You know, we were there ourselves. It's not easy. But, you know, where we differ in terms of how we approach things, I think, is that I am more of a tactical advice giver. And, you know, Monica approaches it from a different way. So what do I mean by tactical? So for me, typically the women that I work with have been stuck in the journey and really just want to problem solve, figure out what is missing, what maybe needs to be retested, and work through the framework that I mentioned before. So I am that detective, and I'm very strategic in how I approach. I very much believe that you cannot move forward without moving backwards, and that every single aspect of the cycles before you need to be looked at. So while of course I can help any woman out there, but typically the women that I help, my niche is helping women in secondary infertility who might have had success already, but are stuck in IVF failure and miscarriage or an unexplained diagnosis. So typically somebody who's been at it for a while, somebody like myself. I think it's very common that the things that you needed for your own journey, you gravitate towards being able to help other women because you've made it through, right? So I made it through, the 8 years. I help the women who, typically feel like they have no hope. And oftentimes we will uncover exactly what it is we need to move forward with. So fertility coaching, I think overall, when we say fertility coach, it is a multidisciplinary approach to figuring out what each person needs to bring them closer to success. So if that makes sense, it really, one couple might need one thing, and I oftentimes work with couples as well because I find it's very helpful. Sometimes I also speak with their children that they already have because oftentimes they're young and they don't understand why mommy and daddy haven't promoted them to big brother or big sister. So I'm kind of there to help facilitate the entire family through this process because it, as Monica said, not only does it affect you as a family, and as a spouse and, partners, it affects every aspect of what's going on, no matter who you are. So I approach it from, whichever direction needs the most help from a strategic standpoint. I hope that makes sense. And if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to drop it there. But I hope I explained that well because, of course, I know what I do. But if that wasn't clear, just let me know.
Okay. So that I think is one of the things also that connect Caryn and me very much because her approach is tactical. On the other hand, my approach is more emotional and looking into the mindset and where your mind is at. So when I started, of course, my purpose was through people that want to do IVF. And then I start to get some messages to an emails asking me if I am able to help people that is just trying to conceive naturally or they are considering IVF. So why? Because, there is a lot of people, a lot of couples and women out there that they are, for example, trying to conceive and they have unexplained infertility. So for people that get diagnosed with unexplained infertility is really something that they see, wow, I don't have any problem. Because when you have an issue, as Caryn says, okay, we focus on that, PCOS or endometriosis or a double blockage of your tube. So you have something that you can work on. Unexplained is seen as a big negative bomb, but then is when I come. I am kind of that missing piece in between your clinic, if you are going through ART like IVF or IUI, and when it goes naturally between your gynecologist and that road. Why? Because I know that one of the things that create a lot of blockage in moving forward when we are trying to conceive is that emotional part. So, okay, I cannot get pregnant. It could be a stress. It could be something that it relate deeper, like, one cause, or it could be everything. And eventually it's an fertility an unknown cause. So I always kind of try to be that part of looking into that emotional thing. Okay, what is in your mind that is blocking you, no matter what way you are going through? So I promote, like mindset, art therapy, and all the things that somehow worked for me during that journey, even during the 5 cycles, and especially in the last one. So when we combine a tactical and emotional part, I think is when we kind of connect. For example, I also agree with Caryn. Some people will not feel vibes with a personal coach or a fertility coach when you have a talk. So I think that Caryn too, I for example offer discovery calls because I like to first kind of have a personal touch with whomever wants to get my services, anyone that is a potential client. Why? Because sometimes when you talk with people, you see that maybe this is not, I cannot help them in that way, and then I refer them to Caryn. Or maybe I see that definitely we connect, we can create a package. So as well as Caryn, when I talk with someone and we see that we connect and they want my services, I create a package for each case. So I work also with couples. I work with mothers or women that want to be a single mom. Today you find a lot of them. And we create that package. And then if we see at the end of the call or at the end of our conversation that she don't feel connected, right away I tell her, look, or them, I have someone else that can be a good approach for your case, and I send them either to Caryn or to Michelle, which is also a holistic coach in Florida. Or I guess that when they go to someone else, like Caryn does, they will refer them to someone. But my approach is
Thank
more
you to
emotional.
Raquela. I agree.
Definitely.
You ladies are absolutely amazing. I think that's a good segue into.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Raquela.
That's a good segue.
Raquela,
I'd like to talk
yes.
about some real specifics. A couple of them you touched on, but like some behavioral and mindset changes that you work specifically on that you found success with for yourself or for others. So you talked about art therapy. Like, what is that exactly? Like, what do you do? And there's others, like, I don't know, just sharing your story for more emotional support from the community, or looking back at past cycles and deeply analyzing them and figuring out what logistically you might do differently. Can you get into some like specifics and exactly how they work to help try to find success the next time around for some of the techniques you use the most?
So for me, I would say, just rolling up your sleeves, and it's really checking off and seeing what you have. You would not believe how many times, for instance, a woman hasn't had her thyroid looked at in a year. And when you're a serial cycler, right, and you're doing cycles back to back to back, your thyroid levels are going to be fluctuating, okay? And in order to have a successful pregnancy, you need to have them in a certain range, and it's not what LabCorp says is the right range, and it's not what Quest says is the right range. It's the right range that an immunological doctor will say, this is where your blood needs to be, your TSH, your T4, your T3 needs to be, because once you do fall pregnant, those numbers are just going to raise higher. And a lot of people don't understand that the thyroid is super important when it comes to sustaining a successful pregnancy and a healthy pregnancy and a viable pregnancy. So that's just one example of something. 3 out of 4 people that I work with have an issue with their thyroid, whether it is some kind of immunological issue or it is triggered by the constant hormone fluctuations that happen when you are doing ART. Each approach needs to be very separate, but again, strategically, the way that I work is I know what to look for. I know what, I know what questions to ask, and I know what tests to make sure that are done. I know what ultrasounds I want to see and when. What are some of the other tests,
for example?
There are so many different tests, but, for instance, if somebody has had even one miscarriage, and we know that, let's say that they're doing testing on the embryos. We know it's not genetic, so there's something else that's going on, which would tell me that it could be an immunological issue, and there's a whole panel and there's a whole array of tests. And depending on what's going on, you do certain, of those tests. You don't need to do every single one of them. But for instance, in a case like myself, there was something that happened where after having a first child, my body got triggered. And it was an immune response as to why I had so many miscarriages, right? And telling me that I'm unexplained, like, clearly you don't know me. Like, I'm a bulldozer. Don't tell me that I can't figure this out, because I will figure it out.
So it's like giving advice.
And that's what my jam is figuring it out.
As well, right? Kind of building up your confidence.
100%. And that's Exactly. So what my job is, like Monica, is I am the in-between between you and your doctor. But with 1 in 8 women being infertile today, 16% of us, clinics are full. There are so many patients and there are only X amount of clinics. I hear it every single day. I don't get enough FaceTime with my doctor. I don't get to ask my doctor questions. I have to speak to a nurse. I have to speak to, an administrative assistant. I'm getting messages through. There's no personal touch anymore. And things are falling through the cracks. Doctors are putting patients in boxes, right? So that's what I help them do, is I help take them out of the box, help them figure these things out, things that may be missed. And any doctor who tells you that you have an immune condition and doesn't treat it until you're pregnant, well, that's too late. And I see it all the time. I just worked with somebody who not only had a thyroid condition, but she had an immune condition that the doctor's like, oh, yeah, I knew that was there. We uncovered this. And I'm like, why aren't you on some kind of anticoagulative, medicine? And the doctor's like, oh, yeah, we're not going to treat that until you become pregnant. Well, she already had 3 failures and 2 miscarriages. Like, when are you going to decide to treat it? So again, that is why, that is what I'm there to do, is to be that advocate, and to help you come up with a plan on what to and how
That's
to
really
talk
helpful.
to your doctor.
Thank you for that. And Monica, tell us what you do with art therapy specifically, or any other techniques or specific, methods you use.
Yes, one of the things that I think I need to name of what Caryn says is definitely one of the things I always advise to someone that comes to me is that you need to have a voice, first of all, with your doctor and your clinic. And that voice means the following. I always advise this. If you have repetitive cycles, or if you are coming after 1 or 2 cycles that you fail, there is something that they are doing that is the same, as Caryn said, that is not working. That's number 1. So if you are going back to your clinic and you had a failed cycle with that, one of the things I always recommend is why you don't look to other clinics, why you don't look for a second opinion. Always second opinion, or even third opinion, is very important. Once we are there and you feel comfortable with your clinic, comfortable with your doctor, you ask all the questions, check what are the positive outcomes. And positive outcomes are not positive tests. I mean babies alive from people that have had infertility issues. Then, if you are in that environment, in a clinic, and a RE, a team that is going to treat you the same way that they treat all these moms and all these couples that have the babies, and you're still stuck, so then I come there. So, mindset, because we are already in a place that you feel secure, you can ask all the questions, but something is blocking you. So art therapy, why art therapy? So what I did work for me, it was, for example, coloring. Why? Because when we put our minds in something that can help us to distract the continuously, what if it doesn't work? What if I am not, and we are in a protocol that is going smooth and nice, so then that's when you can work with art therapy. Coloring, reading, knitting. Why? Because we are always bringing from our subconscious all the cheaty things. That's how the life works in general. Our subconscious is the one that always throws the things of what if it doesn't work, what if it is something like that, or what if it, whatever, all the negative. However, before jumping into doing something that is going to help you shift your mind, I always recommend feel the negative feelings, because when we pile them up, we are doing toxic positivity. So sit, give 20 minutes, half an hour to your shitty feelings and feel them. Rant, and Caryn can tell you, sometimes when I feel that I want to rant, the first person that I can think to text and tell her I need to rant is her or Michelle from the Wholesome Lotus Fertility. This is my 2 goals to get there. Feel them, write them, or if you have someone, even like Caryn, that is tactical, and you need to rant, and you are a client of Caryn, you need to tell them, I feel like shit, I feel that this is not going to work, I want to cry, do it. Why? Because that's the only way to let go. That's the only way to open a space to create. So once you do that, Then you sit and say, okay, now what I can do, what I have, how I can count my blessings, what I can do to make this easier. Because let's face it, you cannot control this. We cannot control it. So the only thing that we can control is the way, how we act upon it. What I can do that I can control on this shitty thing that is infertility, because let's face it, it's shitty, it's crazy, drives us nuts. What I can do to ease a little bit. So that's why, for example, I create the IVF planner. I send one to Caryn so she can.
Just taking more of the guesswork out of it and having a specific plan, like writing.
Numbers.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Why? Because I was a mess. Every numbers that they give me, little papers, and then they get lost, and then I'm like, the F word will come, the cry will come. Where is my numbers? Where is this? So I sit and I said, we need to have a plan. So you can write your results, you can ask questions, you can bring that little planner to your clinic and feel free to ask. And I always said, if you ask a question to your doctor and you have a mean answer, even if it's this little bit, you need to reevaluate
and write it down too. Like I
recorded
appointments or write everything down, because it's just so hard to think back to what you were told in a month ago, let alone a day ago, and just to have everything in one place. It adds to the stress, and stress doesn't help.
And I agree with that so much. And
yes, exactly.
And you know what? There's a magic also. Journaling is therapy, and I think oftentimes I recommend to the women and couples that I work with that journaling can be just amazing, free-forming. I recommend it to everybody. And basically, you put pen to paper, and if you set an alarm for about 20 minutes, you will start going through everything in your mind, and by the end, your mind is going to empty itself on that paper, and that last thought is the thought that's bothering you. Like, absolutely. It's just magical. It's absolutely magical. And speaking about getting a second opinion, girl, I got a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. Like, I had gone through so many different offices because I just wasn't. I had commented, somebody had posted something on Instagram recently and said that they had been going through 4 years of, unexplained infertility. And I felt awful that I triggered this person. But I said, I don't believe that unexplained infertility exists. That's my opinion. You can agree with me or not. I know Monica shares the same opinion. Oftentimes, that's just an answer. I don't care how many doctors you saw that said the same thing. Something's being missed. There's always an explanation for it. There is.
Absolutely.
There is an explanation for it. And, I think that if somebody needs to accept that as their piece, that they've tried everything, I think that's totally cool. And there's no judgment. There's no judgment. This process bites big time. None of us asked to go through this process, like Monica said. None of us asked to, but we are. And basically, we need to find a way to, get through it the best as we can. Your end plan may not be my end plan, may not be Monica's end plan, right? But if you're willing to look under every rock, like I say, I look under every rock with a flashlight. Yes. Like, that's just me. That's my personality. I am no shrinking violet. And, again, this process is so different for us all. There's no guilt how you decide to go through it, or if you, decide that it's not for you at a certain point. But there's no judgment, nor there should be judgment on somebody. I had somebody say to me, I would never go through what you went through to have a child. Only for this person several years later to apologize to me when they started going through infertility treatments and say, oh, I'm so sorry I said that to you. It is
so true that what you say, Caryn. There is no judgment, there is no right, there is no wrong, because each case is unique, definitely. Each case is unique, and sometimes even in the middle of your infertility treatments, you say, you know what, I need to pause because this is driving me crazy. Even a pause is part of that journey, because sometimes the pause help. We did with my husband, when we were like in this mess, we said, you know what, that's it. We need to stop. And this is something that I also suggest and advise to my clients. there is times that you need to sit and look around, because the baby becomes such an obsession. And it happens to me. I talk from my own experience. It becomes such an obsession that obsessions block the flow of things. That is for sure. I have learned it. I did years ago a webinar with Dr. Bruce Lipton, epigenetics, and definitely obsessions and continuous thoughts, and what you say, Caryn, about unexplaining fertility, that doesn't exist. There is something there. It can be fine. Looking into the past, how I did things. Let's see what I did repetitive, because we can change the past. How? By looking into it, do changes in the present moment, so then the future is going to look different. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. That is what it is. Yeah. So they say, okay, I say, look at your moment. What we have now is this, the present moment. How I can make my past happier. So build from now moments that make you better person, that make you happier. Why? Because if you create today, like this moment, we create a smile. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, when we're going to look to yesterday, we're going to look to that moment when I say, oh, wow, now I can smile. So what Caryn says into looking into the past and patterns is for us to check what I'm doing that is the same, that is not working. I need to change that. That is also a connection between tactical and mm-hmm. emotional. One cannot go with the other one. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. And it's the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I see it all the time. Don't keep doing the same thing. You should always be moving forward and making progress, not stuck and stagnant. And I think sometimes doctors try to make it a numbers game. It's not a numbers game.
Each individual
it's not a numbers game.
Case.
No, absolutely not.
And I think, just another thing that you can lose track of that comes up a lot, just self-care, just with how busy our lives are, and when you add infertility on top of how busy things are, it's just something that we often just lose track of. Like we said, aside from journaling, which can be hard, you have to set a time on a calendar, make yourself do it. I think once you get into it, you just see the results. It can become part of a routine, right? But what are some of your other tips and techniques for self-care in general, and just how that can supplement as a piece of the overall puzzle? Maybe even if it's just totally separate, not specifically related to your appointment tracking and such for infertility.
One of the things, if I may, Caryn, is that I always try to suggest people, as the world change, as medicine and science advance so much, sometimes too much advancements, too much things are overwhelming. So, like you see, when I was little, there was not many things about teaching us that cleaning products or the food that we eat has, processed chemicals, compressed things and all of that. So today, that's one of the things I say, I wish that I knew a lot of things that I know now when I was younger, even when I was a teenager. That's one of the things I teach so strongly to my daughter, because I don't want her to fall into the same things that I do. So, for example, I always said, now that the world and they're doing so much genetic modification things and crap all over, let's look into what we eat. Let's try, a little bit steps, little baby steps, because you have no idea how much a healthy lifestyle, and that doesn't mean being vegan, because I was vegan. We were vegan in my house for 6 years, and since my husband got Crohn's disease and he was diagnosed just a few months ago, I discovered that, it's not that true. Everything becomes an obsession. Everything in life can become even an addiction. So we need balance. So how is balance handling? Let's see what we buy for our house that, hasn't too many chemicals. Let's buy our eggs and our meat as much as organic as we can. There is places in towns and little places that they cannot find everything the right, like we have access in big cities, but let's put a little bit of ourselves in something. Try to maybe buy seeds and create your own little garden for your herbs or tomatoes, something. These little steps, you have no idea how much change into your physical being, because when our body is sick and infertility is an illness, this is a voice of our body saying something is wrong. Look into it. A simple headache, infertility. If I would have known that periods, heavy periods and painful periods were not normal, trust me, like Caryn says, I will have take that time, charge of that, and say, let me look into it. So from everyone that is looking, this is watching this live, if you are in your early 30s or mid 20s, trust me, look into what you are using.
I love
what
the
you are
garden
eating,
idea. I feel like that's
because
really like peaceful and rewarding, and it, in a way, it's almost like something else, like the knitting or the coloring, to take your mind off the stress, right? It's
Oh my gosh, it's a therapy. It's a therapy. I have tons of mint here, for example, and basil. I love that, 2 herbs. So when my husband, is so nice to go and like take a little bit of the leaves, make our tea. And that things, believe it or not, also help us to release the serotonin and dopamine that we have in our bodies, which is giving us happiness. And remember something, there is a connection between our brain and our second brain, which is our gut. And just to leave you with that, I didn't know until a few months ago with a friend that 70% of the serotonin that we produce is not produced in the brain, it's produced in our stomach and our gut area. And all our organs for reproduction, they are there. So if we take care of that part, we are basically by default
that's a really good
care
statistic.
of our
I don't think
organs.
everyone's aware of that.
No, I didn't know until my friend told me, that serotonin and all of the, even our, what is that, Caryn, the name of that a hormone that is our sexual hormone too? Endorphins.
Not only
Endorphins, right?
Endorphins.
Even that.
And
Yeah,
but it's not just for sex, but it's things that make us happy, right?
Yes, make us happy and create the passion and the lust and whatever. Because you know what? One other thing that is, and with this I finish that. One other thing that we also forget is that sex during trying to conceive, no matter how naturally or earthy, becomes a burden. And this is something that it shouldn't. We must remember that part is the fun part, and not put it aside.
What are your best self-care tips?
Yeah. So I've got many, but the one thing I want everybody to remember as a couple, when you're going through this together, when your partner's going through this, what did you like to do before all of this,
that, right?
Craziness, before all the mishigas, right? Like, don't lose all of that, Have sex just to have sex. Baby making doesn't need to be stressful. Like, did you like to go to the movies before? Did you like to go on dates? Like Monica said, we become so obsessed, our minds, everything you do is about having a baby, especially if you have one at home. Everything is fighting for your time. But you need to make time, and more importantly, you need to be on the same page. That is a big self-care tip right here too. One of the main things that I always work on with my couples, you've got to be on the same page. Do not take for granted that you are on the same page. So you need to have time to connect. Have a glass of wine together and, talk about what your end game is, what you want, what they want. You can't lose sight. You cannot, your partner can be your best advocate or your worst enemy through this whole thing. So you have to stay connected. You've got to find a way to stay connected. And, the other thing that, I tell everyone, if you've been hanging around with me for a long while, I always say, find your Twilight. I literally watched Twilight hundreds of times when we were going through our journey, because going to Forks, and I know I am so aging myself right now, folks. That was That was my thing. Like, I loved, I was team, Edward, and that was it, like Jacob was nice to look at, but I was team Edward. It got me through. So not, it was kind of, there was no 50 Shades of Grey back then, that was later.
Too.
So, that was my thing, which, by the way, well, 50 Shades of Grey was actually based on Twilight. Little fun fact there. It was fan fiction based on Twilight. But, yeah, stick with me. I'll tell you all the fun facts. But again, just trying to get back to like, what is your Twilight? Is it, what is it? Find something on TV or do something. Is there a book? Are you a crafty gal? Do you like to do crafts? Do you want to do something to get something? Go painting. Go drink wine and paint together. Like, do something together, creative. But I was just saying this to a couple, last week we were talking. You also need to have time to yourself. You're also entitled to go out with your friends, and they are entitled to go out with their friends too. You don't need to do everything together, but again, there needs to be a balance. What did you like to do? What do you enjoy to do?
Yes.
Keep doing that. Don't let this process,
don't look
it will drive you crazy if you let it. This entire process.
You didn't enjoy the time, And what are some suggestions for how to enable whether your partner or friends or others to be supportive, be like a positive influence in your life, especially for those that might not understand or haven't gone through it?
Caryn, go ahead, my darling, and then I
think you have to set boundaries, right? I think the biggest thing is setting boundaries. I really think that it's important. People mean well, but unless they've been in your shoes, take where it's coming from.
Yes.
Take where it's coming from. It's none of their damn business. We didn't ask for this. It's so funny to me that when people are like, oh, you're going to do that? Well, yes, I chose to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this process. That's exactly what I want to do with it. I don't want to go on vacation anywhere. And then oftentimes that is what this choice is, buying a house, going on vacation, baby. This is oftentimes the reality that we're faced with. So I think setting boundaries, I think muting or turning off social media, because it can be very triggering. And I worry that as wonderful as Instagram is right now, I worry that everybody puts every single step of their process on there, and it can be triggering. If so-and-so gets 30 eggs, what I want you to know is that those 30 eggs may not all be viable. You may only get 2, but you may get pregnant and she may not. And it's very triggering, especially when we're dealing with heightened emotions from all of the medications that we're taking. So set boundaries. It's okay to mute people and to turn off social media or do what you need to do. Bottom line, you matter. Your feelings matter. And what your mother-in-law wants,
it is so easy to go down a rabbit hole.
Does not so much matter.
Just get stuck on social media. Just to take it off your phone for a week could be. Yeah.
And it's not healthy.
No, it's not healthy.
It is not healthy.
Not at all. Not at all. I will say the same things of Caryn, and I like, for example, when there is some women in our community, I love that they are very thoughtful before. So when they put a post, it says triggering post. I like when they do that. And yes, the same, if you need to stop to go to baby showers, if you even need to cut from people from your family because they don't understand. It's not that they mean bad, but they don't understand and it's damaging you. Just do that. Definitely, that's the main one. Set boundaries, no matter with who, with what, you have to do.
Yeah, and trigger warnings are helpful, but can also just feel so demotivating to scroll through and see 10 trigger warnings in a row. Then you just know it's all this good news. So sometimes it's just better not to see it if you're having a bad day.
Right.
Exactly.
So I wanted to get to a few more questions that were also submitted to us to ask you. And so one is just, how do you stay motivated when you've had repeat IVF transfer failures, for example? How do you help stay motivated?
What I'm going to say, maybe it's a little bit too, it could be out of tact. It can be taken as anyone want to take it. But I have learned from my own experience. And sometimes, we cannot change what is happening outside us. We can only change from within, right? I went through stillbirth, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I had in my head the thought of taking my life, and I am very open with that too, because there is a lot of people that keep quiet and eventually something happens, and you don't know. So talking about what you are feeling with someone that you think is close enough to you, not to give you even advice, but just to listen. So having someone to listen is very important to keep you motivated, because sometimes that's the only thing we need to just get it out and not even hear any advice or something.
And
just
you
get
can
it
tell
out,
someone at
because
the
we need
beginning, I'm not looking
and
for
the
advice.
other
Don't
thing
worry
is
about finding a solution for me.
totally
Just listen.
I just want someone to hear, like I do with Caryn. Caryn can tell you, I need to run. It's just like the full text, and I felt so like relief. And sometimes I don't tell her if I need or not advice, because she already knows, and Michelle too, they know. But if you have someone that you think it could be someone that can hear you, you tell that. And the other thing, Rebecca, and it's gonna sound a little harsh, but it is true. Happiness, in my opinion, and motivation is a choice. So it's in our hands to decide if we want to get drawn in deep shit, and I tell you that from own experience, or if we say, you know what, yes, this is freaking hard, this is terrible, but I can, my only way to get out is to climb up. If you don't have anyone, because you don't want to talk with anyone, because you just isolated yourself, you are the only one that can choose. Either you victimize yourself, or either you say, that's it, and I'm telling you again, I lost a baby, a complete child. It's something that has no name. And Caryn can tell you, that pain has no name. I always give this example. You lose a parent, you are an orphan. Or you lose a mother, you are an orphan. You lose your husband or your wife, you are widower. When you lose a child, no matter which stage, and the oldest, the worst, there is no name for that. So I could have decided to just take my life and not feel that pain, and being such a selfish with my husband, my mom, my daughter, but I chose not to. For whatever reason, God helped me, and I chose not to. So it's a choice. If you have no one, you need to somehow get that strength, because we're born with that strength, and get out of there. Sorry, but that's how it is. Oh, that's how I see it, and that's how I can give you the best advice. I don't know about
So how do you deal with, this came in from someone else, how do you deal with the fact, if you're in the scenario where you find out you can't have children with your own eggs? This is sort of more specific. And that can be tied into also fears that with donor eggs, that might also not be an easy journey, right? Have you worked with clients going through that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it is a very personal decision. It is a very personal decision. And I think that again, is one that needs to be discussed with both parties, and no matter what kind of couple you are, right? Like, that is a very personal decision that, in some cases, there could be no genetic component to your child. And that is something that you need to be 100% okay with. There is no right or wrong answer, because I've had people who, who don't feel comfortable with it. I think that there's going to be a period of mourning. I think if you're told from that onset, just like when you were told that you are infertile and that you couldn't do it the natural way, there's going to be an adjustment period where you're going to have to adjust to this idea. But ultimately, nobody can make that decision for you. You need to work through that together with your partner, and decide whether or not that's something that, is if that's if that's something that you are willing to do. And I will tell you, there are several women that I know right around me who have done that, and it's not even an issue. It wasn't even a second thought for them. I think the stigma, there's so much to be said about nature versus nurture. but again, it's a very personal decision, and that not one that can be made. But I would say you have to take the time to let it sink in, journal on it, work on it, be spiritual about it, see a counselor if you need to, get help to work through it. But just like anything else in this process.
And you hope that you can become like at peace with it and start to feel like it's this wonderful option and journey for you, and that it can help you have your child. But
right. Of course.
I just
like,
but
there's no judgment. But if there's no judgment, if that isn't your way,
like that we're moving past that. Yeah.
Yes, I do agree that we're moving past it, but then I will come across somebody who's not okay with that. And that's not for me to say. I think it's a very personal decision. I think, you know, while I would like to say that a lot of this is not motivated by religion, you know, I have to tell you that a couple months ago, I was part of Advocacy Day along with ASRM and Resolve.
Yeah.
And there actually was a senator who, you know, felt that for religious reasons he couldn't back this bill.
Yeah.
And that's when he was like, what? In this day and age? You know, so I bring this as an example just to show that people's opinions are people's opinions. And while, you know, I think that there have been great strides. When Monica and I first started going through this process, I felt ashamed. I felt alone. I felt a stigma. I was embarrassed to tell people we were going through it. In fact, I'm sure there are lots of people from my past who asked me when I was pregnant with my twins if they were IVF, and I literally would say to them no. And I had this whole elaborate response to it because I was so embarrassed. My body couldn't do what other people's bodies could do. And it was really upsetting. So I think that we've lifted that stigma, but I do think that still, you know, I think it's an old fixed mindset that you need to have your eggs for it to be your baby, you know. So I hope that stigma is starting to, you know, to go away, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I always say, you know, I probably should say this for the end, but anyone who wants to be a mother can be a mother. Anyone who wants to be a mother can be a mother. I will say it again for the people in the back. You have to be open to how you get there, though. Hi, mister.
Sometimes she just
she's a mom. You see, she heard me. So, you know, I love it. You know, that's the great part about working from home here. It's just, you know, it's a family affair. But truthfully, in my soul, in the depths of my soul, for the person who's listening today, you will be a mother. You will be a mother. You just have to stay open to how that can happen. There are so many wonderful advances and ways for that to happen. And, you know, just, you know, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, GoStorky, GoStork, sorry, I'm saying your Instagram name, GoStork is helping these people get there in a seamless, wonderful way with the platform that you have provided. I can't gush enough about you all for what you're doing, and it's you know, it's there. Use it. We do. And just be open.
Totally be open. And like, for example, if you're looking for an egg donor, we have over 10,000. So there's a lot of diversity, right? Which it's hard to find. There's just a lot of ways to like search by your preferences. You can chat directly with agencies, ask questions. You can search by egg donors that have a grad school degree, or just the ones that look like you, or ones that have proven fertility in the past. So we're just trying to simplify and help make those first steps easier. And one thing you said earlier, just about that feeling at a clinic potentially where, you know, you might feel more like a number than a patient and a real person. And so we're just really excited to launch our fertility clinics marketplace, and we will have success rates, which you, as you said, live babies. So success rates
congratulations
by, you know, your specific case, whether you're you know, doing IVF for your gestational carrier, for yourself, etc. And the ratings and reviews we do personally, there's a question about did you feel like a real person or a number. We have that in our questionnaire for our surrogacy providers as well. So it really comes from that perspective of the intended parent. You can see the real verified review. So we're just trying to give you all the information you need to make it easier. And like, if you move or do one journey and then you go through some kind of trauma or you need to take your break, you can come back and do a new search and maybe find a better fit. So I just really appreciate you saying that. And thank you for I feel like that's kind of like a good mantra, Caryn. Do you, Monica, I know we're a little over time, but Monica, do you have any your words of wisdom or your mantra, or your, final words for example for intended parents or patients just beginning their journey that, you have so much experience with?
Well, always make sure of something, that your ultimate goal, yes, is the baby, is being parents, but this is not your main thing in life. And like I said, in the beginning, don't make it look, or don't take it as an obsession, because when it becomes an obsession, it's blocking it. So yes, that's one of your main goals. But never forget that before getting into where you are now and before looking into parenthood, you have a life. So try to balance. That's the best thing. And live life, because there's only one life. And with all what is going on in the world, with what happened before, live life and live it along with the process that you are going through. Because what happened is that we take infertility like it's the only thing that is happening to us now. And there is others. You have a family, you have a husband, you maybe have a child. So make sure that you try to have balance in your life. It's easy to say and it's very difficult to take action upon it, but practice is what makes perfect. And don't get me wrong, I'm not balanced in any way.
I'm perfectly balanced.
No, I'm not. I need a coach sometimes.
We're imperfectly perfect. We're all imperfectly perfect.
Because it comes from a good place. Of course, you're going to obsess about having your child or your second child. And like, I've been through a long time in a NICU, right? And a pregnancy that almost fell apart close to the time that yours did. And like, of course, you're going to go to a place of obsessing about every detail, but you take a step back and make your plan and still do everything right. You go spend as much time in the NICU, sanitize everything, pump all day. Like, you have your plan, you work with the nurses. The obsessing part and the stress just doesn't help solve the problem for you or your partner or your child. And it's just so hard not to, because like I said, it comes from a place of love and just hope, but in the end it doesn't help, right? So don't Google it.
But also don't Google it. You know what? Do not go to Dr. Google. Do not go to Dr. Google. Because let me just be clear, because something happened to Monica doesn't mean that it's going to happen to you, Rebecca. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen to me. So let's be clear about that, number one. And number two, speaking of the NICU, I had my experience in the NICU, and just because nobody else could tell me that my daughter, who was born at 23 weeks, the size of my hand, wasn't going to come home, didn't mean that she wasn't going to come home. And let me tell you, folks, my daughter, who had a 3% chance of survival, came home to me. So don't let anything be a limiting belief. Don't let any doctor say to you that, and I actually had a doctor say to me after that pregnancy, after my twin pregnancy, never to have a baby again. And guess what? He told me it was my fault, that it was my body that wasn't going to ever give birth to a pregnancy again. Guess what? I have a little 7-year-old walking around. So, shame on him. Don't let anybody put baby in the corner.
And you were
that is my thing.
Experience that
do not do that.
Story about yesterday that really caught me.
Yes. Yeah, me too. And you are so right. It's always listen. You say it, Caryn. Always listen to your inner voice, because even if you fall and make a mistake, doesn't matter. It's yours, nobody else. So you don't. That's it. Because that voice, when you don't feel something, trust me, I'm telling you.
Trust it.
Always trust it. No matter.
Always trust it.
Be okay,
it's always right.
No. It's all
you know your body better. Do you know how many times I talked to a woman who was like,
was wrong, and I was right. Yeah.
Right.
When I had my stillbirth, I knew for some reason that something was very wrong, and I even crossed my mind my mind. And then what happened? I felt guilty because maybe you go with that. Oh, I brought the thought. No, something. And
No, we share that. We share that, and there's always these decisions that we need to make, and Monica and I share that in common also.
Yes.
It's very difficult to do that, but again, you have a choice on how you're going to deal with any of this adversity, right? You control how you deal with this adversity. Always listen to your gut. Always advocate for yourself.
Yes. Totally.
And it's
our choice.
Thank you both again so much for all the thoughts you've shared today and through your practice and through your social media, though take breaks from social media when you can, but if you want support, these are both wonderful accounts. And thank you again for joining us. And I just wanted to end on a quick positive note. If there's anything personal or professional that you're excited about coming up that we should look out for, let us know. When's your next live or collaboration? Any group courses launching soon, just let us know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And Monica and I will be live on Tuesday morning if anybody wants to come and see the Monica and Caryn show again.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say I'm very grateful to have such a lovely relationship with the lovely people at GoStork. And I did get a little sneak peek at this new application of finding your clinics. And guys, it is spectacular, just like everything this company does, right? So, take advantage of it. It is free, guys. It is out there for you. They're doing this for you. Take advantage of it. They are amazing people. Do you see all those hearts going up? They are amazing people who just
wanted to create something for others. Just his niche. Like you have your amazing niche where you've been through infertility and now you can help others in your way. And he comes from 20 years in technology. So this was his way to provide a free resource to really help make the decision-making process so much easier and help people be so much more informed and not have to go down a rabbit hole in Google about all the confusion and everything that could go wrong,
Well, I'm a spreadsheet girl, and I love your spreadsheet application. So it was done in a very, I like a visual thing. So guys, please support this company. Honestly, from the bottom, I know I speak for Monica too. First-class company. They are there for you, and that is why we love you guys, and we're so honored. And thank you so much for having me on today. And I, let Monica speak. I won't speak for you because I've got a chatty mouth. But thank you. It's been a pleasure. You look beautiful, and it has been such an honor to share the stage with you guys today. And thank you for having
if anyone wants to hear more of this,
Rebecca.
They're amazing.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. Say hi to Erin, and I really appreciate that you have us today.
If anyone has questions you didn't ask during the live, you can DM any three of us that you have questions for. And also, we have more in-depth interviews with both Monica and Caryn on our blog if you want to learn more, get more perspective, and just, hear more about their background and everything. And, if you guys have other topics you'd like me to explore in these lives, I love all the suggestions. So you can always DM us or email us or add to the comments. So thanks again. Have a great day. We'll talk to you both soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a great day.